Hello, it's me, it's Recky, and welcome back for what I like to call current affairs. What's going on in the world? Well, of course, we have one hot topic, hot potato, and that is the war that's going on in Ukraine. This video we're going to watch is from Caspian Report, and if you've been with me for a couple of times, I think I did a few with Caspian Report, and the information we get from his video is beyond. He's a fantastic YouTuber and a storyteller and always brings the hot news for everyone. So let's do a reaction to it. The video we're going to watch is Russia's war in Ukraine is not going to plan. We're going to find out why it's not going to plan. It's going to be amazing. Before we do that, I'd like to apologize for the sun behind me. I can see it now. It's very bright, but I'm not going to complain. I live in Sweden. We have darkness for 8 months. I embrace the light. On the screen now, you can see my super awesome people, my supporters. So we got channel members and we got Patreons. Thank you so much for the support. It's amazing. I am super humble. I never expected this kind of support, and you make me happy. Very, very happy. We got the supreme tier donators over by Patreon. They get a shout out. Sean Pearson, buddasquirrel, and David Bangtson. If you do enjoy this, hit like and of course subscribe. Suggest anything else you want me to react to when it comes to current affairs. It doesn't have to be today. It could be in history or maybe in the future. Let me know what you find. I love to watch it and react to it. Let's do this. Caspian, bring it. Bring it, Caspian.
War without logistics is just a riot. This satellite image shows a massive 65-kilometer-long Russian military
65?
convoy headed towards Ukraine's capital, Kiev. It includes armored vehicles, support vehicles, tanks, artillery, etc. There are more weapons in this convoy than in the arsenal of some nations. Yet the Russian advancement has stalled due to Ukrainian resistance, fuel and food shortages, and regrouping by the Russian leadership. It is believed that the first 17 kilometers of vehicles...
It's very low, and it's when I fill it up all the way, it crackles a bit. I don't know if you guys can hear it, but we need to let that be gone because it's very low.
...is out of fuel and possibly with dead batteries. What was supposed to be a 3-day sprint has become an international traffic jam. Looking at the first few days, it's clear that Russian forces haven't made as much progress as they originally planned. The reason? The Russian military is an artillery army first, but has thus far used a fraction of its available firepower.
So we did a reaction to Caspian Report on the plan, and he pretty much nailed it. And it's amazing. I can see if I can put it up somewhere here, up here so you can watch it too. So you get the plan, and it's not going to plan.
Russia is in essence attempting a full-scale invasion without the military operations that it would require. And as shocking as the scenes from some cities seem, Russia is seeking a low-cost victory with low civilian casualties. In other words, Russia has been holding back. However, as sanctions steadily come online, Putin may have to step up the lethality of his war plan to achieve a breakthrough without losing face. For Ukrainians, that means the worst is yet to come.
Caspian Report. My God, this guy, Caspian, if you're watching, you're my idol now, dude. Love the intro. Wow.
Today's video is sponsored by Storyblocks, a stock media service that offers royalty-free videos, photos, graphics, and music. I was pleasantly surprised when Storyblocks reached out. I've been using their content for years, and it's a network that I can wholeheartedly recommend. In fact, most of the music and stock footage you'll see in this video comes from Storyblocks.
Wow.
I've been using the platform since 2019, and I can tell you it has one of the largest libraries for stock videos. Not to mention, the files are neatly packed, download speeds are fast, and the preview box makes it easy to browse. The pricing is affordable, you pay one sum and get unlimited downloads, and there are subscriptions for every budget. I have an unlimited all-access plan, which includes music, images, sound effects, and templates for After Effects and Premiere Pro, in addition to video content. If you're a content creator or planning to be one, Storyblocks should be your first pit stop. Visit storyblocks.com/Caspian to learn more and start making content. Like jumping into a pool before checking for water, Russia's invasion of Ukraine is not going as planned. Technically, Ukraine and Russia have been fighting since 2014. The violence never stopped. But the recent attack is something else, a new chapter in Ukraine's struggle for statehood. Russia's initial plan included a mad dash to Kiev, forcing the Ukrainian government to capitulate while pushing small units to swiftly capture strategic road junctions to avoid larger engagement with Ukrainian forces. It's a strategy akin to the Crimean takeover in 2014, when Russia's Little Green Men forced the eviction of Ukrainian troops from their bases. Then, as now, the plan of attack was a low-cost victory with low civilian casualties. The Russian leadership went into this war knowing that it would be deeply unpopular at home, so they sought to keep death and destruction to a minimum. As a result, the Russian military attempted something they had never done before, something it hadn't trained for: acting with restraint. What Russia is doing in Ukraine can be best
He said acting with restraint. How can you do that in a war?
described as a handbrake invasion. It's holding back its firepower, deliberately so. Now, open source footages show strikes on Kiev and other cities, but as damaging as these attacks are, this is not the capacity the Russian military can bring to bear.
I agree that.
This then makes the war in Ukraine strikingly different from other conflicts, such as those in Afghanistan or Syria. The trouble is that the Russian military has never attempted a handbrake invasion like this. It's not the type of war they've trained for. So this isn't the Russian military fighting as it would against NATO. Even so, Russia's military has performed poorly. Ukrainian forces have fought back resiliently, exceeding expectations and playing into Russia's logistical vulnerabilities. For instance, by having blown up the railways coming from and to Russia, Ukraine forced Russian logistics to switch from rail to truck-based supply runs. Then, Ukrainian fighters on the ground and Bayraktar drones in the air targeted those fuel trucks. Without fuel, tanks and other vehicles are useless, and fuel trucks make for easier targets than tanks. So, Ukraine played into Russia's overconfidence. Meanwhile, Russian units are not doing combined arms warfare. What we've seen in the first few days instead is small units pushing forward, tanks moving without infantry, jets flying into hostile airspace, and supplies running low. Much of the Russian decision-making seems unnecessary and risky. Instead of operational needs, tactical planning is driven by institutional needs.
The problem is, what I read today is that Belarus infantry, I think it was infantry, is actually moving into Ukraine or getting close to the border. So this is not over. As Caspian said, it's just the beginning. And it's kind of terrifying because I am pretty close.
Every combat arm of the military wants to jump into the action so it can do its thing. For instance, a small Spetsnaz unit was sent into Kharkiv only to be repelled. Now, this isn't unique to the Russian military. It's common in conflicts where one side is particularly confident in its capabilities. Russia's war plan is failing because its army is attempting a full-scale invasion without the military operations that it would need, likely based on the fact that the Russians thought they could avoid heavy fighting, at least initially. What's more, the Kremlin underestimated the Ukrainian will to fight. For instance, after days of fighting in Ukraine and after Russian troops started taking casualties,
there's actually people all over EU, Europe, that actually travels to Ukraine to fight for the Ukrainians. That's amazing. I saw a short documentary about a couple of British guys just jumping on the train or plane or whatever it was and said, we're going to fight with and for the Ukrainians. That's just amazing.
Russian Health Ministry mobilized civilian doctors across the country. The fact that the Russians hadn't done so on the first day suggests that they hadn't expected things to go so badly. Essentially, the Kremlin tried to score a low-cost victory and do so swiftly to avoid the worst of the sanctions. Now, they've ended up with the worst of all worlds, committing resources into a bad strategy. That said, Ukraine would not want to celebrate too early. Even though the Russian leadership underestimated Ukraine's will to fight, it would likewise be a mistake to measure the strength of the Russian military by its territorial gains. The fact of the matter is that large parts of the Russian military have yet to enter the war. Much of its capabilities remain unused. Russian artillery has only used a fraction of its available firepower.
Yeah.
Even the Russian Air Force is largely...
I heard it's not even like 1%. It's not even 1%. I don't know the digits or the correct percentage, but I think it's like 1% of the capability. And that is just insane.
Missing in action. Cruise missiles and ballistic missiles are not being employed to destroy air defenses and air bases, at least not to the capacity of the Russian military. Russia's handbrake invasion has thus far little to show for, but the leadership in Moscow doesn't have the resources to muster a lengthy, violent occupation. Socio-political pressure is already starting to materialize within Russia. The war in Ukraine is unpopular and unexpected, and as the body count keeps rising, anti-war sentiment within Russia is likely to increase with each passing day. Putin needs a resolution to the war, lest he creates serious problems domestically. However, he cannot pull back now without losing face. So, to accomplish its goals, to achieve some breakthrough, the Kremlin might need to step up the lethality of its war plan. The Russian military...
What I am a bit terrified is because it's not going to plan. And like he said, Putin is not going to pull out and withdraw, and he's going to lose his face. What is he going to do to maintain his face and maintain the his attitude towards it? Is he gonna say F it and just pull everything he have just to storm Ukraine just because he doesn't want to look like a coward, if you know what I mean?
Could start targeting public infrastructure and residential areas. Civilian casualties would rise, and the goal would be to force Zelensky's hand in the negotiations. If it comes to this, slowly but steadily, Ukraine would turn into a Syria-like battle space. Ruins would come to fill the countryside. Putin's bar for a negotiated solution is for Ukraine to concede Crimea to Russia and agree to some form of neutrality or federalization, and possibly a constitutional limit on the Ukrainian military, something akin to the Japanese situation. Zelensky is unlikely to agree to those demands, which means that fighting would drag on for some time. And herein, the calculus becomes precarious. The longer the war goes on, the more the Ukrainian battle space becomes like that of Syria. But the opposite is true as well. The longer the fighting continues, the more time the sanctions have to kick in. A lengthy war would harm Ukraine, but also shake the foundations of Putin's power at home. And though a palace coup remains unlikely, the odds will steadily turn against Putin as the war drags on. So right now, the Russian leadership is in salvage operation mode. They need to get out of Ukraine while saving face. It's in Putin's interest to hold negotiations sooner than later, while Zelensky would do well to delay the talks until sanctions start cutting into the Russian skin, albeit at the risk.
There's a bunch of sanctions going for Russia now. I can't even name one because there's 100 types of sanctions, mostly economic sanctions, I think, and embargo, and there's a lot of things going on, and it's going to take a while until Russia actually feels wounded by it. It's not the people of Russia. There's only one man. Don't forget about that.
Risk of ruining Ukraine. A lot can happen in the meantime. For Putin, it's either war crimes in Ukraine or socio-economic defeat in Russia.
Yeah.
When you think about it, it's ironic. Putin has always considered the collapse of the Soviet Union a catastrophe. Now it seems he's trying to get the USSR back, but in all the worst ways. I've been your host Shirvan from Caspian Report.
Man.
Please like and share this video. It helps us out tremendously and enables us to do more of these videos. Thank you for watching, and Saro.
Caspian, again, thank you so much for that report. It's amazing. You are a skilled individual. Thanks to you and your team behind Caspian Report. Now we got the latest, what's going on in Ukraine. It's heart-wrenching. And there's a lot of talks about Sweden and Finland not being a part of NATO. And there's talks and that Putin is threatening Sweden not to join NATO. We shouldn't answer to his threats. My opinion, and has been that for a very long time, that Sweden do not belong in the NATO. And because NATO is a military deal that you have with other countries. Sweden has been living in peace for 500 years. And going into NATO is just saying, we're ready to wage war. That's not going to happen. What Finland does, I don't give a crap. Sweden should stay out of NATO. Not because Putin tells us to. I'm Recky. Smack like, hit subscribe. See you next time.